Hey there, guys! It's Vampire Preacher. How you doing? How's everything going with you? You okay? You been staying safe? You been staying healthy? Washing your hands? Not touching your face? Cool. Cool. Well, today, I've got a very special unboxing for you. One that I'm very excited about. Because it's actually one of my favorite runs of comics. Today I have for you the complete Age of Apocalypse wave of Marvel Legends figures, including the Build-A-Figure. Now, AoA is my favorite alternate timeline. It might just be my actual favorite Marvel timeline, if I'm being honest. There's a story behind that. So, regulars of the channel know that I always make the joke of I used to read DC comics when I was young, and then I turned 7 and matured enough to say to hell with that and started making mine Marvel. That's partially true. I fell in love with Marvel comics when I was 5. My first ever Marvel comic was Age of Apocalypse. And spoiler alert for something that's, yeah, we're talking almost 3 decades old here. If you don't know about it, then too goddamn bad. It's the issue where Nemesis, actually named Holocaust, killed Sabretooth. It was my first ever Marvel comic, and I loved it. I thought it was incredible. I thought it was mature. I loved everything about it. It was so cool. So I've had a more than mild love affair with the AoA comics ever since. I actually have, if you see behind here, there's that stack right around this area here. That's actually every run of all, and I mean all of the AoA comics. It's all of them. Every subsection, everything. That's all of them. Right there. So, yeah, I'm a little bit of a fan. But, enough of me talking. You didn't come here for that. You came here for action figures. So, cue the theme. Cue it. Can you hear it? Can you hear it? No, I can't either. Okay. Let's get into the unboxing today of our Marvel Legends Age of Apocalypse X-Men figures. The first figure we have today is actually a redo of a ToyBiz figure that was a Toy Fair exclusive figure. That's a really weird journey to go on there. It was a Toy Fair exclusive. It's one of the few Toy Fair exclusives I don't have, which is saying a lot, because I was subscribed to their magazine for I don't know how many years. A stupid amount of time. That figure is Sunfire. Yes, this is almost one for one the exact figure that we got previously through ToyBiz, through the Toy Fair exclusive, but now it comes with 2 arms. Okay, cool. I guess that works. So, let's get into the figure, shall we? We have our window pane front here, showing our figure, our accessories. We've got our artistic rendering of Sunfire here on the side. We've got our picture of the figure himself, along with our blurb all about Sunfire. Now, mind you, the figures and the characters that you know from the X-Men, they're not the same in this world. They're not at all the same. We'll get into that, exactly what I mean with that, a little bit later. We've got our figures here. We've got all 7 figures and the Build-A-Figure that we will be seeing today. Inside, the backing, if you can't tell, because there's too much lighting, is Apocalypse. It's just the face of Apocalypse. Inside, we've got 2 arms. This one with a bunch of rings on his left hand, and I suddenly just realized a whole lot about myself as a person. We're going to put all of our build-to-figure pieces over here, though I must say, before we even get to them, these are some pretty hefty arms we got. These will be left side arms. Or at least this one's a left arm, and this one's a right arm. Okay. Those are clearly his only arms. Clearly his only arms.
Ah, fuck you.
For our figure itself, I gotta say, I kind of love the sculpt that they've done with Sunfire here. This piece around here is solid. It's connected to, so it's not removable. But I love the flames. I love the flames for his head. This is not your classic Sunfire, although I believe he's on the classic Sunfire body. If he's got, yeah, this is on the Sunfire body, funny enough. So it's not your classic looking Sunfire, but with the butterfly shoulders, we know this is indeed the Sunfire body. That's kind of funny. I think our forearms are actually the Johnny forearms from our Walgreens Fantastic Four, Johnny Blaze. Huh. Neat. And, of course, if you guys can't... that is a locked up leg. I'm not going to go busting that. Because he, if you can't tell, is kind of a translucent plastic. You can see pretty much right through him. Which my guess means that he's fairly brittle. Just like all of the Bobby Drake figures we've gotten. So, you got to be kind of gentle with this one. Even if you've got his leg kind of cattywampus like I do here. I'm going to need to do all my articulation tests with this leg. Because this leg is, it could pop off the hip. Kind of like the Retro Iceman did. But we got that fixed, thankfully. Let's get into the articulation. For our downward neck articulation, that's about as far as he's going. For upward, he's actually going a pretty fair degree. I could see him... Oh, of course the head pops off if you go a little bit too far. But, only because of the fire effects back here, it's making it so he can't go any further back. That being said, he can go into a pretty decent flying position here. Not wonderful, but decent enough. He does have those butterfly shoulders, as mentioned before. For our shoulder articulation, we're getting better than a T-pose out of him. That's cool. But, can also go so far forward and so far back with our butterfly shoulders. So it gets you a little bit more range there. Lets him really wind up a punch. Probably put a fire effect over this hand to make it even more obvious that he's going to be just throwing fire, spitting mad fire at someone. He does have the bicep swivel, as seen here. The double jointed elbows. Dude, just shy. If it were a little bit more, if we didn't have some flash from this flame effect back here, we could be getting it, but no, there's no good flex for you. Not today, sir. Not today. He has the standard in and out wrist articulation, as seen here. Although, going out, you can't get much more than a straight fist because of the flame effect on the back of his hand here. It's pretty much going to be just a straight hand. Same thing is going to go with the other hand, where it's only going to go as far back as this, but can go so far in. He does have an ab crunch, which can go so far forward and so far back. Got a decent range of motion to him. Not fantastic, but decent. He, of course, has a waist cut. For his hip articulation, that's as far as you're getting him. It's not quite as wide as the ToyBiz one, but I honestly think I like the design of this one a little bit better. He's got thigh cuts here, but they are very tight, and honestly, You might want to do the boiling water trick before you try turning him, since this could easily pop the hips, break those, and make it so it's going to be a real pain for you later on. For his double jointed knees, actually, yeah, they can go a great degree back. It's pretty impressive, not gonna lie. As we've already seen, because they've been going all over the place, he's got a boot cut. Always a nice feature to have. For his rocker ankles, they go a disturbing degree in, an absolutely devastating degree out, a fair way forward, and all the way on point back. For the height test, he's coming in at the tip of his flame to 7 inches. He, as the actual character, is coming in just at above 6 inches, but the flame just adds that little bit of extra. All in all, not gonna lie to you guys, I really like him. I think he's a solid figure. I think he's really well done. I think he's an improvement over the ToyBiz one. He doesn't have the finger joints of the ToyBiz one, but I can also use some of the other hands that we got from Johnny Storm. So, there's options there. If I had to give him a rating, Sunfire's coming in at a solid 8. He's coming in at a solid 8. The translucent plastic is cool. The sculpt for the head it's amazing. The sculpt around his chest here is... everything here is an improvement on the ToyBiz one, and people loved the ToyBiz one. So, that tells you something. If they improved everything about that figure for this one, I can't say no. That's awesome. I love it. For our next figure, we have someone that you guys will probably recognize, but probably not recognize. Curious what I mean? I am too. Our next figure of the day is X-Man. Now, if you don't know who X-Man is, he's Nathan Gray. Sound familiar? Nathan Summers is also the same character. It's Cable. This is Cable. Just in a different timeline. So yeah, there's that. He doesn't quite look the same as the guy from Deadpool 2.
Pump the hate brakes, Thanos.
But it's actually the same dude. Same parents, same everything. He just gets to keep both arms, so that's cool. And he did not get the technological virus that started creeping up and turned his one arm metal and started making him be in immense pain every time he did technopathy, which is the weird power that Cable has. He's just, psychic instead. So, that's cool. Anyway, enough of me talking. Let's get into it, shall we? So, what we see in front of us is, of course, our window pane front with X-Man and 2 arms. 1, 2, 3. Maybe they're interchangeable. Who knows? We know, chat. We know. We've got our comic book rendition of Nathan Gray here on the side, our picture of the action figure on the back, the rest of the wave, our build-to-figure, and our blurb here. All about how Nathan Gray travels between dimensions armed with astonishing psychic powers as the X-Man. Again, it's Cable. I think all of our backings today are going to be the same. They're just this profile of Apocalypse here. In incredibly light blue. we've got our 2 other arms for Sugar Man. And of course, our X-Man figure himself. Now, cool thing, and thing I'm very appreciative Hasbro is doing, they gave us this effect piece for Nate. Now, I do wish that they gave us a head without the effect piece, so that we could choose which of the 2 we're going to use, but normally you'd need to get this effect piece as an aftermarket thing from someone like Can of Beams or something. But, instead, we've got Nate here, and, yeah, it's just attached. That's kind of cool. Not sure where the jacket's from. It's a new style of jacket. It's not the same one that we got with, Scott, or with Havoc. It's a new jacket, but I'm in favor of it. I will say I'm a fan of the sculpt, and yes, very much so of that effect piece, as you can see here. I'm a big fan of that. Let's get into the articulation, though, shall we? Nate can look down incredibly well. He can look pretty much straight down, and can look up, actually, to a pretty great degree. I'm impressed. If he didn't have the popped collar here, he could look back even further. But because of the pop collar, that's not happening. For our shoulder articulation, he's getting a T-pose. He's got, of course, bicep swivels. For the double-jointed elbow, he is... Hang on a second here. Let me get this straight. He has a jacket on and double-jointed elbows. Hasbro, why couldn't you do that with his father? Why were they single-jointed elbows for Scott when he's wearing the jacket? Why did it take getting the alternate dimension of Scott's son to get us double-jointed jacket elbows? Sometimes, Hasbro, you guys make me really question your decisions. We also, of course, have the standard in and out wrist articulation. It can only go so far back because of these really wide sleeves of his, and only so far forward. It doesn't come with any extra hands, but it's okay. He's got this one kind of weird psychic-looking hand, so you can kind of have him reaching out to do psychic powers. Yeah, that's actually a pretty good look for Nate. And put this arm down. Maybe have it just like that. Yeah, actually, that's not bad. Yeah, might be the pose I use. I don't believe that he's got... No, he does not have butterfly shoulders. He definitely does not underneath the jacket here. The jacket's soft goods, but it's not as soft as other jackets that we've seen. It's somewhere in between the standard and the soft good. Why beats me, but... For our ab crunch, we're going so far forward, and actually, pretty decent degree back. I believe this is a brand new torso, too, because that's not anything that we've seen before. So I think they did a bunch of new tooling for Nate here. Also, the belt is new. Actually, I think everything on him, maybe the legs are reused, maybe? But I know the knees are definitely new. So, yeah. Nate Gray getting the extra tooling. No idea why, but okay. For our hip articulation, we've actually got a better range of motion out of Nate than we do out of Sunfire. I don't think I mentioned before, but we do have a waist cut on him. We've got the thigh cuts, of course, for our double jointed knees. We're able to do a decent degree back. Not quite as far as Sunfire, but a pretty decent degree. But for him, we also have a boot cut. Alright, I'll take it. For our rocker ankles, we're going... Are we going? Are we not rocker ankles? No, we are. We are. That is an incredibly painful degree out. And a disturbing degree in. Just a little bit tight for the ankles there. That's a really far degree forward. That's actually a great range of motion on him. And all the way on point back. For our scale, Nathan Gray is coming in at just under 6 1/4 inches tall. So he's not quite as tall as Sunfire with the flaming head, but he's tall enough. He's tall enough. All in all, how do I feel about Nate? Well, he's not bad. He's not bad at all. I think he is an improvement over the Most Wanted figure that we got ages ago. That long before Marvel Legends was ever a thing. So that's what he'll be replacing in my collection, is the Most Wanted X-Man. I like him. Does he have some flaws? Yeah, namely paint rub on him. I notice we've got a little bit of paint that's askew here. There's a little bit of paint rub here and here. Actually, pretty much all of the paint around his collar here. A little bit on his sleeves and the buckles. But that's really my only nitpick. He seems a little top-heavy. Like, his torso is a little bit big for his legs. But I also think that's how he's drawn, so it's art accurate. So I'll take it. All in all, he's a solid 7. He's a solid 7. The coat gets in the way a little bit. I do love that we finally have some double jointed jacket elbows. That'll be nice for future jacketed figures. So I'm cool with that. Actually, I'm really happy with this updated Nate. The next figure we have up is the one that most of you are going to be the most familiar with. Or so you think. Our next figure to be unboxed is Weapon X. Not Wolverine. He never got that name in this universe. Not Logan. He doesn't remember his name in this universe. Weapon X. He never got to escape the facility. He has stayed as Weapon X for his whole life. In a very tragic turn of events. But we can get into his backstory in a minute. First things first, let's get into what we've got in the package. So, we've of course got Weapon X in our window pane front, along with this extra cap here, this leg. We've got our artistic rendering of X on the side, and our blurb all about how Weapon X is armed with adamantium claws and superhuman healing abilities. Weapon X joins the battle against Apocalypse. We've of course got the photo of the figure, the remainder of the wave, and our build to figure. Inside, of course, that is the same backing we've had for all the others today. At this point, we're not even going to examine the backing, as long as it doesn't change. We've got our build a figure. This is a very tiny leg to go with some very big arms. Somebody's been skipping leg day. We've got our cap there, which is weird. Huh. Wonder what that's about. He says we'll know exactly what that's about. So I'm not sure why in the world he's got claws over here. That's not how X is. He doesn't get claws on this hand. He gets a cap on this hand. Because yes, that is actually more accurate for the majority of the run of Age of Apocalypse. No hand. Now I know what you're probably thinking to yourself. Vamp. Wolverine, who has all kinds of healing power. How did he ever lose a hand to never get it back again? Well, I'll tell you. He has one hand. In the AoA universe, Cyclops has one eye. He is a literal Cyclops. Weird how that works, isn't it? That's because someone here punched Cyclops in the face with a claw. He took out Cyclops' eye, but as he shattered the glasses, Cyclops took his hand. Meaning, Weapon X is the one-armed wonder for the entire run of Age of Apocalypse. It's not until the very end that we get the I'm not a fan of the fact that they put his claw pop hand on him instead of just in the box. Heck, even making it so that it was hidden would have been better. I'm trying to see if you can remove these claws like you can most of the other ones to see if I can replace them. That distributor I told you about earlier, Can of Beams, has metal claw replacements. Wanted to see if you could replace these with the metal ones, because that would be kind of neat. But enough about the lore. Let's get into the articulation. Actually, before we even get into the articulation, look at that wild face of his. The big smile, the little strand of hair right here, getting into the face. I love this. Again, it is incredibly comic accurate. Ooh, don't look at it from the back. That's not a pretty picture. As long as you're looking at it from at least the top, you should be fine. Let's get into the articulation, though. X can look down actually pretty decently well. And looking up... Oh, wow. Oh, wow. Even with this mane of hair, they made it so that you can get him into the proper pose for X. I'll show you that pose in a little bit. Oh, that's really cool. He does have butterfly shoulders, and we'll get into the range on those in just a moment. First things first, for our shoulder articulation, we're getting a T-pose out of him. We're getting a T-pose. For the range of these butterfly shoulders, we're going this far back, which, that's a great Berserker Rage amount to bring it back. And it starts giving us trouble right around here, but we can get it this far forward. Meaning we can really get a claw swipe in there just right. So that's pretty awesome. The hair on his arms is... I'm trying to figure out if it's painted or sculpted. Because there's one version of Wolverine that they had painted it, and one version they'd sculpted it. It's a relatively new thing they've been doing, but some of them do have it sculpted, which is kind of neat. This, I believe, it's just painted, not sculpted. We've, of course, got the bicep swivel. It doesn't turn all 360 degrees, because he's just got a little bit too much musculature up here. For our double jointed elbows. Oof, that's it. Youch. That's all we're getting out of him. Logan, buddy. I'm sorry, in this universe, X, buddy. You gotta do something about that. And maybe it's because of the giant Ginsu knives you keep in your arms. And, of course, he's got the in and out wrist articulation on the one hand that he's got. For the other hand, of course, as we saw, it's just a singular peg. So it just kind of pops off. It does spin on the peg, but you're not going to be doing much other than spinning it. Just to kind of do that. And it spins the full 360, but that's it. He does have a ab crunch, which goes so far forward. And an alright degree back. It's not a fantastic degree back, but it's an alright degree back. He does have a waist cut, as we see here. For our hip articulation, Logan, buddy? Yeah, you wanna... Trying to see if he's got, like, drop-down hips or something. And he definitely does not. Yikes. That is all the hip articulation we're getting out of him. Oof. He does, of course, have thigh cuts. Some double-jointed knees on him that go back, actually, a pretty great degree. They go back just about as far as Nate's, not quite as far as Sunfire. He's got the rocker ankles, which go a disturbing degree in, a painful degree out, an alright degree forward, and all the way on point back. Now, old Snickbub here is always known for being, how do I say this? Kind of a short shit. So, let's find out just how he's sizing up today. Our AoA X comes in at just under 6 inches. He's right above 5 3/4 inches tall, meaning he is going to be shorter than Nate, as he should be, and he's definitely going to be shorter than our AoA Sunfire, especially with these extra flames here. So, how do I feel about the figure? He's not bad. We have seen this figure before. This is another improvement on a ToyBiz figure. The last time we saw this figure was, and here's this is where it's going to get weird. It was the Walmart exclusive Giant Man wave. And there were 2 alternate versions of Weapon X here. Even though it wasn't an Age of Apocalypse wave, there were 2 versions of X. One where he had the full head of hair here, and one where it was a heavily burnt and scarred version where the hair was gone completely. The normal version had no secondary claw. The burnt version had the secondary claw. The normal version just had the stump. The only other figure that was like that was the Age of Apocalypse Sabretooth. Now, they didn't even do an alternate version or a variant because ToyBiz was known for doing variant figures. They didn't do a variant of any kind for Sabretooth. They just had AoA Sabretooth. Now, I do have both of those figures. So, of course, AoA Sabretooth will be going with these 8 new Age of Apocalypse figures. You better believe he will be. Especially our last one for the day, because I'm really excited about him. Do I feel like this is a better figure? Actually, yeah. Surprisingly, yes. I feel like he's going to be able to do the iconic pose, which I promised I was going to do for y'all. And yeah, he actually does it really, really, really well. There's several different issues where Logan's in a pose just like this, where he's got the claw in front of him popped, the stump just kind of off to the side, hunched down real low in front of Age of Apocalypse Phoenix, aka Jean. So this is probably how this one's going to be displayed. Here, I will actually cut back to that so you guys can see. Just, yeah, I mean, he looks fantastic. I think he is a drastic improvement over the ToyBiz version. Plus, the ToyBiz version is, of course, now literally impossible to get a hold of. That wave had poor distribution, and you could find no figures of it when it was in stores. Finding the complete wave was next to impossible. So getting that giant man was, yeah, it wasn't really a thing that you could do. I know, I tried. This is back when Legends were $5 too, so I was more than willing to get more than my fair share of them. Yeah, the only ones I got from that wave were AoA X, AoA Sabretooth, Ant-Man, which was a comic book styling of him. And that was it. The others were super hard to get, like Sentry, Kitty Pryde, Captain Britain. They were all really tough figures to get. I do highly recommend this figure. Even though he's yet another Wolverine for my collection, and I'm not a Wolverine fan, as you guys know, I really do think this is an improvement over the previous one. I do suggest, if you're an AoA fan, or if you're a Wolverine fan, and you want this look, grab it. It's definitely worth your time. For a rating, you know what? I don't know if I'm being generous today or what. He's getting another 7. They did so many good choices, like with the hair here, to make sure that he can get in this down pose. I don't know if I'm just being crazy generous, but he's another 7. I expected not to like the figure, and I love him. It's actually a really good Weapon X figure. For our next figure, it's a character that we've been wanting for a while in Legends form, but haven't gotten. We still haven't gotten him, because this is not the Legends form we were looking for. And that is Morph. You guys remember Morph? From the show. Who's that guy? Morph. Looks just like him, right? 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 No, he looks absolutely nothing like the Morph that we know and love. He is the superhero Morph. It's a weird thing going on with him. Let's just get into it, shall we? So we've got our window pane front here, showing Morph and another tiny leg. We've got our artistic rendering. Look at that. Look at that smile. That smile is going to haunt you in your dreams. That right there, that is your sleep paralysis demon. We've got our picture of the figure on the back, along with our blurb saying how Marvel's Morph is a natural mimic. Kevin Sidney transforms himself into any shape at will. We've got the remainder of our wave, plus our build-to-figure. Our same backing, with, again, another tiny little leg. And just Morph on the inside. Let's see if we can finagle him out. Yep. We can finagle him out of the cape, thankfully. Make it a little bit easier to get him out of there. Alright, so Morph. Really? I thought the Morph was on the Bucket Cap body. He is not. Because he's got... He's got butterfly shoulders. 3 out of 4 figures we've unboxed today so far have butterfly shoulders. That's incredible. Is he on the 2099 body? I think he's on the... Or not 2099, the Sunfire body. I think he's on the same body as Sunfire. Now, granted, it's parts reuse, but it's good parts reuse. I'm done with Bucky Cap. This is... this is an improvement. We will keep the cape off for the moment, just so we can test out our articulation. For our neck articulation, Morph's looking down decently well, and looking up an alright degree. For our shoulder articulation, if they will go up without the butterfly shoulders giving me a hard time, he's getting a T-pose. For the range on our butterflies, we're going so far forward and so far back. I'm genuinely impressed. I did not think Morph would have butterfly shoulders. We, of course, have the bicep swivels, the double-jointed elbows, which... really... there's too much flesh on the inside of the bicep swivel towards the bicep side of the elbow. And then the glove provides just a little bit too much extra flash for him to get that good flex. That's a shame. No wrist swivels, but we do have our standard, well, no forearm swivels, rather. I was expecting maybe because of the gloves he had on, maybe we'd get them, but we do not. He's got the standard in and out wrist articulation, as seen here. And that applies to both of his hands. He does have an ab crunch, which can go a pretty fair degree forward, and an alright degree back. He does have, of course, the waist cut here. For our hip articulation, a fair degree. We've, of course, got the thigh cut. Not sure if this is the same amount that we got from Sunfire. If it's not the same, it's pretty close, maybe even a little bit better. But I know it's better than the other two here. I think he might have our best hip articulation so far today. For our double-jointed knees, wow! Were it not for the flash on these boots, they would go even further back. And this is a great amount of articulation as is. If it weren't for the cuff on the boot here, it'd go even further, and that's incredible to me. He also has a boot cut. Wow! 3 out of 4 figures today had a boot cut, and 3 out of 4 had butterfly shoulders. That's incredible! For our ankle articulation, that's a pretty painful degree in, and a deeply disturbing degree out. You can go a little bit forward, but there's a little bit too much flash there, keeping him from going too far forward. But can go pretty much on point. Not quite, but almost all the way on point back. If it weren't for the cuffs here, he would be able to go all the way on point back. Let's put that cape back on him. I think the cape is actually just a redo of Magneto's cape. I think it's a remold of the various Magneto capes that we've seen, specifically with the Family Matters 3-pack and the one of the previous X-Men waves with the heroic black suit Magneto. Because of the bumps along here, I feel like it's the same cape. Actually, I believe that was the Apocalypse Wave Magneto. Funny enough. Morph is coming in at just over 6 inches tall. I mean, just a hair over 6 inches. Making sure that his feet are aligned up here at the bottom. And if he might just be exactly 6, otherwise he's just a hair over. Meaning he's just a little bit shorter than Sunfire here with all the flames up here. He's right about the same height as Nate. And of course he towers over Wolverine, because Wolverine's only ever going to be this low to the ground. Ever. All in all, how do I feel about Morph? Eesh. To be honest with you guys, it's a cool figure, but it's not Morph. I've seen a lot of people doing this, and I think it's what I'm going to do. I'm probably going to pop this head off and pop on the Madcap head that came with Deadpool, I believe the student Deadpool, a couple waves ago. Probably going to do that to make this into my official Madcap figure, because this is not my Morph. Morph I think of more so for the X-Men the Animated Series Morph. Now, I know Morph did have this appearance as Super Morph in the Age of Apocalypse storyline. That being said, that's not the way I want to display Morph. Hasbro, you have the pieces. Just give us Morph. Simple. Maybe with a retro X-Men wave, because he was one of the 5-inch figures, which is now fairly hard to find. Just give us Morph. Normal head, evil head, Wolverine head, Cyclops head, which is the same thing we got for that 5-inch figure back in the day. I think they gave him like a handgun too, or like a fantasy pew-pew handgun, space gun. And you guys love to do that. You guys love to do that shit. So please, please Hasbro, use the pieces that you have. Just give us Morph. Otherwise, I'm going to wind up making him myself. And then I'm never going to buy yours. You hear me? For this figure, y'all, I want to give him a 5. I do. But I'm going to give him a 6. Hear me out. The reason why I'm giving him a 6 is because they didn't use the Bucky Cap body. They could have. I expected them to. I was full well expecting this to be a Bucky Cap. And it's not. That makes me very happy. They're moving away from the Bucky Cap. Thankfully. I'm sure it'll be years until they fully move away from it, but this is at least a start. Thus, I'll give it a 6. Just because it's at least on the Sunfire body. So, you know, I'll give it a 6 because they've started to learn their lesson. Improvements. Speaking of improvements, well, actually, I wanted to do this figure before, but I've been having so many good figures. You know what? Morph was kind of a bust. We'll do a good one for you. Our next figure in the wave is Dark Beast. Yes, this guy right up here, Hank, he went real evil. I mean, real evil. He became a pretty big bad guy in the Age of Apocalypse storyline, along with Cyclops. And, of course, Mr. Sinister and Apocalypse, because, you know, at least those two are actual bad guys. So is Beast. So is Hank. Let's get into it, shall we? So, of course, we've got our window pane front, our artistic rendering of Dark Beast here on the side, our complete wave of figures here, along with our build-to-figure and our blurb all about Dark Beast next to his very pretty-looking figure that they've done of the figure itself, saying, for Dark Beast, that Dr. Henry McCoy constantly experiments on himself to enhance his superhuman powers. Because, yeah, this one doesn't want to be less beastly. He wants to be more beastly, which should terrify you. In the box, we've got a hammer here that says sugar. Alright. Well, I guess that's going to be our Build-to-Figure piece. I'm not entirely sure, but I think that's going to be our Build-to-Figure piece. We've got 2 extra hands for Beast. Always a nice thing, especially for a character like Beast. And then we have the figure himself. And, whew. Just like with the previous Beast that we got, Beast here is a hefty boy. He's very close to being a big, beefy boy, but I think we're going to see bigger and beefier today that will put this boy to shame. But he is still a hefty hunk of plastic. Man, there's a lot going on here. Like, a whole lot going on here. Let's get into the articulation on him, shall we? For Hank, for his neck articulation, that's as far down as he's looking. And that's as far up. He's pretty much just looking straight forward. This mane of hair just makes it so that he cannot look any further. You'll notice the underbite from hell and the mane of hair, all the piercings, the hair wraps. It's a lot to take in. Now, I will note, this is mostly the same body as we got with the previous Beast. Mostly. Big differences. The lower torso here is actually slightly different because he's got these indented lines here on the pants. Additionally, this Beast wears pants. The other Beast, it cuts off here at the thigh cut because he only wears shorts. This Beast, though, nope, those are pants. So, while modifying himself, he learned modesty as well. For our shoulder articulation, we're getting about a T-pose out of Dark Beast. He also has butterfly shoulders that go so far in and so far. Wow, that's a great degree back there. That's huge. He's got the bicep swivels, of course. The double jointed elbows. So close. That is so close to being a good flex. I really wish I could call it. He's got just a little bit too much on there to make it happen. He also has the standard in and out wrist articulation. And that goes for all 4 of his hands. He has a ab swivel, which goes so far to the side, or so far to the right, rather, so far to the left, so far forward, and so far back. And then there's the ab crunch, which goes so far forward and so far back, meaning with the 2 together, he can go this far back and this far forward. I love that they're starting to do this. They learned from this Beast, and the new Retro Wave Spider-Man also has the lower ab crunch plus the waist swivel, so that we can get some actually really good posing out of them. Which, it's about time, Hasbro. It's about time. Because he's got the ab swivel, there's no waist swivel, but that's okay, because he still has the ab crunch to go with the ab swivel. For our hip articulation, wow! That is the farthest we've seen today. I've heard that he's got the drop-down hips, and that could be the reason why. I've heard that these hips can pop down some. Might even... Yeah, oh, wow. Oh, wow, yeah, they pop down even further. Huh. Wow, that is incredible. That's a great deal of hip articulation. That's a huge angle there. That's... Wow. He does have thigh cuts, of course. If we can get them to move. This one's a little bit too frozen up, but we do have thigh cuts on him. We've got the double jointed knees, which can go back a fairly decent degree. It's not as far as the others have gone today, but it's not bad. Now this perplexes me. This is clearly a different piece here. You can see these are two different pieces of plastic because of fur and not fur. Why does he not have a boot cut? Morph does. X-Man does. Even Sunfire has a boot cut. And only one of those figures actually wears boots. This one, with different boots, has no boot cut. Why?
Why?
Why, Hasbro? Why do you do these things? He, of course, has the rocker ankles that go a disturbing degree in, a painful degree out, a decent degree forward, and all the way on point back. And as we saw from when I took him out, he also has toe joints, which can go so far up and so far down. Meaning he has the most articulation we've seen out of any figure today. And that's awesome. It means that you can put your Hank McCoy here into a ton of positions. I'm sorry, Henry McCoy. Hank is the 616 version. And this ain't no 616. As far as scale goes, Henry here is coming in at over 7 inches tall. I mean, just a hair over, but he is coming in, if not just a hair over, then exactly 7 inches tall. So he is as tall as our Sunfire here, to the very tip of that flame, which might even be a little bit taller. Meaning compared to Nate, oh yeah, he's going to, yeah, he is a much bigger, he's a much bigger, beefier boy than Nate. He's not a big, beefy boy. Should we call him it? I think he might be big enough and beefy enough to be considered one. Especially since I want to see how tall he is compared to little... Oh, compared to X, he's over a head's taller. Wow. Ooh. X. Youch. That is not going to end well for you, sir. That is not going to end well at all. Even though this is pretty much a recast of the Beast that we got before. So is the Gray Beast that's coming out with the Retro Wave packaging. However, they never gave us that Gray Beast as a figure back in the retro days. They're putting him out on the card back from the 90s. We didn't get Gray Beast then. He's got the thinking head, but it's in gray. He's got glasses, but the head's in gray. He's got a book, but the whole figure's in gray. I like the extra thinking, more intelligent head for my Blue Beast, because as is, I've just got the goggles with him. If you guys remember that unboxing back in the day. It's been a minute. But this is still a pretty great figure. He's got some new tooling for the pants. The head's, of course, new tooling. The calves, the arms, the chest, that's all the same. It's even the same hands that we got. but he's still a pretty cool figure. All in all, I'm going to say this beast is an 8.5. He's an 8.5. He's going to still get my best ranking of the day because of how wonderfully articulated he is, how great the detailing is, how the sculpt is, where they've got the fur all sculpted on him, and it's amazing. I'm not going to give him nearly as high as his predecessor, only because I feel like there's some extra sculpt issues with this one, namely, why'd you not give us boot cuts when you already have the cut there for the boots? Why? That makes no sense, Hasbro. Between that and the fact that it's mostly mold reuse for that figure, it knocks it down by a half of a point, because that beast was a 9. It was either 8.5 or a 9, I don't remember. But he's still an awesome figure. So far, I'm not going to lie to you guys, this wave has not really had any misses. The Morph is the closest thing I've had to a miss, and that says a lot. For our next figure, speaking of misses, we have Phoenix, aka Jean Grey, often referred to as Red by, of course, X, who's in a relationship with Jean, which is why he only has one hand, and why Cyclops has one eye, and why Nathan has a broken home. Yeah, it's a weird story, but it's so good. But, enough of me talking, let's get into it, shall we? So, we've got our window pane front here, showing our little bitty Jean, and this horrible looking thing, which we'll get into very soon. We've got our artistic rendering of Red, our wave, which we are almost done with, our build-to-figure, and, of course, our blurb next to our picture of the action figure, where it tells us that Jean Grey can read and project thoughts and stun opponents with pure psionic force. This Jean embraced the Phoenix force a lot more, and didn't really go by Jean. She went by either Red or by Phoenix, but we'll call it Jean Grey. We also have this weird secondary bubble over everything, which is very form-fitting to everything inside of here, including, this is just the face of Sugar Man. Remember what I said about Morph being your sleep paralysis demon? Yeah, I take that back. Meet your new sleep paralysis demon. That's just his face. This is part of his torso. You'll notice his back isn't here. Just his front. We'll get into why in a moment. And of course, we've got Jean. The backing is the same as we've had on the other figures today. Now, for the figure itself, for Jean, I know a lot of people have been complaining about the sculpt for her. Honestly, I think she looks pretty accurate to the comics. The only people that have been complaining, they've been saying one thing and one thing only, that they want her to have a bigger chest. Whatever. Dude, get over it. It's a toy. Beyond that, let me tell you, the face looks really good. Like, really, really good. I love what they've done with it. For our neck articulation, Jean can look down a pretty decent degree, and up, wow, actually incredibly well. She has shoulder articulation, which we're getting a little bit better than a T-pose, but I was held up there because, of course, they've given us no bicep swivels, single jointed elbows, no waist cut, no ab crunch. Hasbro, why do you hate money? Why? Why do you hate money? If you liked money, you'd invest it a little bit more into your female figures so that they would look good enough that people would want to buy them, so that they wouldn't complain about there not being a chesty enough figure. If you just improve the articulation, people would actually not give a damn. Just saying. For our single jointed elbows, yeah, that's all we're getting. We're getting just better than 90 degrees. She, of course, has the standard in and out wrist articulation. Because of the sculpt here on the sleeves, it makes it so that even if you put them all the way back, it's going to push it a little bit forward. For the ab swivel, we're going so far to the right, so far to the left, a little bit forward, and a fair degree back. Of course, you could see the breakup in the sculpt there when you go all the way back, but it's not horrific for range. For our hip articulation, she's got some decent hip articulation. I'm not going to say it's as good as Beast, because Beast had some beastly hip articulation, but it's not bad. She, of course, has the thigh cuts, the double jointed knees, which can go almost all the way back. No boot cuts on her, but that's okay. We've got the rocker ankles that go a decent degree in, a incredibly painful degree out. That's ouch. It can go a fair degree forward and an alright degree back. As for our scale for Jean, she is coming in at just 6 inches exact. Now, that means compared to Beast, of course, she's going to be more than an inch shorter, but she's going to be slightly taller than Logan. Now, of course, because I've got an Age of Apocalypse Jean, her pretty much only pose ever is going to be like so. While standing directly in front of that crouched down Logan. As I said earlier, these two are a couple in the AoA universe, and this is actually a fairly prolific comic book cover of the two of them, with him crouched down in front of her, pretty much exactly like this. So, yeah, if you want to recreate some comic book art, that's how you do it. You get these two figures, and it's instant articulated comic book art. As for Jean, how do I feel about her? Chat, I'm divided. I like the head sculpt. I like the detail they put in. I like how they got it mostly right. I don't like how Hasbro keeps on phoning in with the females, with the single jointed elbows, with the no ab crunch, with the no waist swivel, with the no bicep swivel. That being said, it's a good representation of the figure. I actually do like it a lot. Like, a lot more than I should a lot. I think she's fairly great. I'm not going to say that she's the best female figure we've ever gotten, but I will say that as far as the comics go, she is pretty accurate. I can't really complain. The only reason why I'm going to give her a 6 is because she still suffers from she's getting a 5. She suffers from all of the same pratfalls of every other female Marvel Legends figure that Hasbro has given us in recent time. Hasbro, if you want a higher rating, fix your females. Because that ain't it, Chief. I love the figure. I love who it is. I love the world all of them are from. I love having Jean from Age of Apocalypse. I love having Red in my collection. That being said, we need better female figures. And only you can do that, Hasbro. And honestly, I'm at the point where I'm holding you accountable, Hasbro. Fix your shit. Our last figure for today, before we get to this monstrosity of a Build-A-Figure, is one I've been waiting a very long time for. Slight backstory. This figure was announced back in the ToyBiz days. It was going to be a free pack-in with a different figure that we've mentioned already today. One that I have. But the cost of production, the cost of plastic, and the cost of oil was going up too much, so they decided to scrap it. And that upset me. Because my Age of Apocalypse Sabretooth really could have used a wild child ages ago. It's taken well over a decade to get this figure. The figure that he goes with, the AoA Sabretooth, came out back in 05? 04? It was a long time ago. It was a ToyBiz era figure, and as I've said, it was a Walmart exclusive figure. It came back then with the little forearm piece for Giant Man, but we should have had him back then. And it's taken all of this time to finally get him. So I'm a little bit mad that we haven't gotten him already, but we've got him now. That's what matters. Enough of me talking. Let's get into it, shall we? So, we've got our window pane front showing Wild Child and the back of Sugar Man up here. We've, of course, got our artistic representation with the comic book art of Wild Child. The picture of our figure for Wild Child. The whole wave of figures, which this is the last one of. We've done all 7 at this point. Plus the instructions for our Build-A-Figure, which I might actually need to use these instructions this time because he looks kind of complicated. On the inside, I didn't even mention it, we of course have the blurb telling us all about how enhanced regeneration and superhuman senses make Wild Child an excellent tracker, which is the role that he really plays with the X-Men team in Age of Apocalypse. I say X-Men like that because if you don't know, the premise of Age of Apocalypse is that there are no X-Men. Charles Xavier died. Apocalypse killed him. There's no Charles. No Charles before he created the X-Men and the Institute. He had the mansion, but he was just living there. There are no X-Men. There are no... Yeah, there's no X-Men. The leader of the X-Men in this alternate reality is Magneto. You heard me correctly. Magneto runs the X-Men. Again, the quotations are because the X-Men don't exist. And that is a mighty back for this character. Wow. This is going to be a very complex Build-A-Figure, and he's going to be one ugly mother when we get into it. And of course, as I've said before, the backings are all the exact same. It's that Apocalypse face in the background here. We don't even need to go into it. It's been the same for all of them. Now, he does have this coiled up chain, which, Actually, looks like, yeah. Okay, that's kind of awesome. I'm not going to lie to you guys, that's kind of awesome. On the back of his collar here, there's a little loop. The end of the chain actually makes it so that it hooks on to the back of Wildchild. So if you can see, if my hands don't get in the way, he's actually suspended here by the chain. Meaning the chain's got enough to it that you can actually suspend Wildchild with the chain. Of course, the chain's also all coiled up so that Sabretooth can be holding on to it, which is exactly what I plan on having done. I'm going to use my Sabretooth figure from ages ago to, yeah, hold on to this Wildchild. Because it's just, that's very cool. Alright, let's pop that off for right now so we can get into the articulation of this figure. This is the straightest up Wildchild is ever going to stand. As, let me tell you, if you think Wolverine's crouched down, you have no idea what my plans are for Wildchild here. Now that we've straightened him up, though, let's see what our articulation's like. For our downward neck articulation, he can look down decently well, actually pretty well. For our upward, honestly, that's a little bit disappointing. The back of the collar here keeps him from looking any further up. I can turn the neck and make him go a little bit further back, and honestly, that's kind of an awesome look to him. That might be how I'm going to display him. For our shoulder articulation, we're getting a T-pose out of him. We're getting at least a T-pose. He does have butterfly shoulders, which means that with this figure, we've had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 figures out of 7 that have had butterfly shoulders. His can go so far forward and so far back. Now, he actually looks to be on a slimmer body than these two, so I do not believe he's on the Sunfire body. I believe he's on the Spider-Man 2099 body. So that's pretty awesome. He's got the, of course, bicep swivels, as seen here. The double-jointed elbows, which, as our last figure, you've got to be the one. You've got to be it. And he is. Ho, ho, ho. And he is, ladies and gentlemen. In a clutch of all people, Wildchild was the one to do it for us. Our last figure, the prodigal son, he's the one that gives us that good flex. You know it, you love it, I love it. We've got that good flex out of him. Yes! At least we got it out of one of them. His hands have the standard in and out wrist articulation, although if you try and get them too far in, his thumb here, being as far forward as it is, kind of pops it back. So it'll probably be more back like this at all times. Let's be honest, that's how it's going to be displayed anyway. For our ab crunch, that's as far forward as he's going? Oh, that's not going to do it all. And that's as far back? Wow. I was really expecting better. You can barely move at all. And that's our entire range of motion. All the way forward and all the way back for Wildchild. Youch. He, of course, has the waist cut. For his hip articulation. Does he have the drop-down hips? Hoping? Maybe? No, he does not. So that's as far as his hips are going out. He does have the thigh swivels, the double-jointed knees, which if I can get the... There we go. Can go all the way back. That's a good sign. I like that. For his gargantuan, nasty-looking feet here, look at those. Look at those talons that he's got. Fairly certain these are the same feet that we saw with the Red Goblin for the Kingpin wave. But we've got the rocker ankles on him, which go so far that they actually do a full 360 around. Which, that's just horrific. He can go so far forward, and so far, actually can go all the way on point backward with his ankle articulation. That's actually impressive. I wasn't expecting that. Scale-wise, Wild Child is coming in. Wow, he's actually really tall. He's at about 6.5 inches. Meaning that, yes, he is going to be smaller than our Dark Beast. But he's also bigger than Gene. That's odd, because if you guys are at all familiar with Age of Apocalypse, Wild Child usually has one place, and that's resting on the shoulder of Sabretooth. That's part of why he's got the collar and the chain. He just stays chained up on Sabretooth, pretty much like this at all times. Which is why, as I said before, if you thought as low down as I got Logan was a feat, you have no idea what's going to be done with Wild Child here. I really do wish that he had a little bit more forward bend in this ab crunch. I really, truly do, so I could get him just a little bit lower. I really would prefer him to be a little bit smaller, because I'm going to have him like this on my Age of Apocalypse Sabretooth. I'm sure that they're going to make me look like a fool and re-release Age of Apocalypse Sabretooth so that Wild Child can go on him and go on him properly. But in the meantime, in between time, I'm going to have this in the hands of that AoA Sabretooth. Pretty much just like this. If only he could bend a little bit further forward and put his head a little bit further back, I would be very happy. All in all, how do I feel about Wild Child? I feel like it's about damn time we got the figure, but that he's so tall, it's almost... I wish they would have used the teen body that they had for the teen body Parker and for Miles, just to make him a little bit smaller. Because Wild Child, though he is very lanky, he's also pretty small. Again, he just rests on Sabretooth's shoulder all the time. As a figure, I'm going to give Wild Child he's a 6. The only reason why he's a 6 instead of a 5 or lower. 1, I've been waiting for this figure for a long time. 2, they did use a different body. Again, they didn't use the Bucky cap on him. They used a thinner, better body, which, good on you, Hasbro. The chain's really nice. The way that the chain hooks up and the way that he just dangles here is pretty awesome. That shows, even though the chain is open, just how much strength that open chain has. He does have a peg in his back as well, so that could be useful for doing some posing with him. But yeah, this is pretty cool. This is 90% of the reason why I gave him such a high rating. It's just because of how cool that is in and of itself. And while I do like the sculpt on him, I do wish that he was just a tad smaller. And I wish that he had a little bit more range for his ab crunch, just to make him hunch over a little bit more. Again, to make him smaller, so that he can sit on top of my Sabretooth shoulder just a little bit better. I mean, just a hair better. All in all, though, is he bad? No. Is he my figure of the wave? Also no. For my figure of the wave, I'm going to go Dark Beast, of course. He got my highest rating. They've done some great things with the Beast mold that they've made. But I can't really say there have been bad figures in this wave. My biggest complaints were these two, and they're still pretty good. So that should tell you a lot. And that completes our whole wave of figures today. Which means that that's all that we've got for you. We'll see you later. I'm joking. I'm joking. We've, of course, got this monstrosity of a Build-A-Figure to put together. So, without further ado, let's do further, shall we? So, first things first, let's try and get this back onto the figure. Because his back is a separate Build-A-Figure piece from the front of his torso. And that snaps on like so. Now that, I shouldn't even pull up his suspenders yet, because that doesn't even include the face of our Build-A-Figure. Oh, that is... Oh, that is one big ugly boy. This is just his torso. We haven't even put on anything else. We got our legs here. Our stubby little legs. Very funny, very funny. Alright, now I'm actually going to consult the back here so I know which arm is supposed to be which. Our pointing arm is actually our back arm. And then our fist arm is our front arm. Ooh. Alright, and then our open hand is our back hand here. Means that our grasping hand is going to be our forehand. Apparently that's where he's supposed to hold his version of Mjolnir. I'm well aware that's not Mjolnir, but you would be forgiven for thinking that it is, just based on the shape. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, we've got our Sugar Man. And as I said before, Sugar Man is, and say it with me, kids, a big, beefy boy. I mean, just look at the bulk of this guy. It's not even getting into the forearms. He's so bulky. I'm not gonna lie to you, chat. I love this figure. Without even getting into his articulation, I love it. You know why? Because it shows that Hasbro is willing to do weird crap. Let me explain. back in the days of ToyBiz, we got some weird build-to-figures. We got Mojo. We got Modok. We got Galactus. We got the Sentinel. It's been a while since we had something really weird and not quite humanoid. This is weird. This is not quite humanoid. This is not something they're going to reuse the molds for anytime soon. No one else has these stubby little... I mean... I guess the legs are going to be reused because these look very similar to the legs on the upcoming Strong Guy wave of Deadpool figures. Because Guido's got very tiny legs too. So they're probably going to be reusing those legs for both him and Guido. But the upper body is 100%... You're not going to use this face for anything else. This is a one-time use face. This torso with the 4 arms, that's a one-time use torso. I mean, good on Hasbro for not thinking just about how to undercut with mold reuse. Because this is weird, and I love it. Sugar Man might be a bad guy, but man, he's a cool-looking bad guy. Enough of me talking. Let's get into the articulation, shall we? For his head articulation, yup, that's it. It's his torso. His face takes up the entire torso. He looks really freaking weird. For his shoulder articulation, for the back set, we're getting a T-pose. For the 4 set, we're getting just under a T-pose. He's got bicep swivels on all 4 arms, double jointed elbows on all 4 arms. Is he really? It's close enough for me. Ladies and gentlemen, Sugar Man is giving us that good flex. Are you kidding me? The Build-A-Figure was our second good flex of the day. Look, I can even make him do the same pose with me. Our Build-A-Figure is our second good flex. There's a little bit too much flash in some of these. Some of the arms are giving us a good flex, some of them not so much. But I think I could cut off a little bit of flash in here, in the elbow, make it so that he really gives us that good flex. And even better than this. He, of course, has the in and out wrist articulation for all 4 hands. If this one wants to stay on, that is. He has no ab crunch or ab swivel, but he does have a waist cut. But frankly, where would you put an ab crunch or an ab swivel in this? It's one big, bulky center with a horrific face. For his hip articulation, that's it. That's all that you're getting. You're not getting a whole lot of hip articulation out of him, but I'm not really expecting it. He does, of course, have thigh cuts, because that's where we put the thighs onto the torso. He's got only single-jointed knees, though. That's as far back as the knees go. That's it. Sugar Man, you're definitely not getting yourself out of physical therapy with that. That's... oof. That's painful. You really need to go back. Do some stretches, man. For our rocker ankles, they go a fairly disturbing degree in, an incredibly disturbing degree out, a little bit forward, and almost all the way on point back. Now, in measuring this big beefy boy, this big ugly beefy boy, we're going to be measuring him 2 ways. Because one, we've got the height on him. Sugar Man is coming in... I'm sorry, am I seeing that right? He's just at about 6 inches. If he's any more, then he's barely over 6 inches. Huh. Meaning that Beast, if I can get him next to Sugar, our Beast is taller than our Sugar Man. Granted, Sugar's of course going to be taller than Wolverine, but not by much. I believe he's even technically shorter. Yeah, he's even shorter than Sunfire. That's wild. Oh my god, he's even shorter than Nate. He's even shorter than Nate Summers. Oh. That's insane. He might be the shortest figure other than Wolverine. Is he even shorter than Jean? Now I need to know. He's shorter than Red. No, he's a hair taller than Red. Wow. He is one of the shortest figures today, but he's also one of the widest. He is the widest. That's bar none. He's the widest. He's keeping his arms tucked in as far as they can be. I wish I was joking with you, chat. He's wider than he is tall. Because in width... Let's see if I can get this arm a little bit further back. Same with this one. Now, if I get the arms as far back as they can be, he's 5.5 inches wide. And that's with taking great lengths to make sure that the arms are all the way back behind the other set of arms. Which, if you've got a Sugar Man figure, let me tell you, you're not going to be putting the arms behind the other arms so that they can't be seen. You're going to be using that second set of arms, because that's one of the things with Sugar Man, is him using his 4 sets of terrifying arms. I mean, this is a horrifying looking figure, and I love it. Maybe it's because I played too much X-Men Legends back in the day. Yeah, you were wondering where you recognized him from. X-Men Legends 2 had Age of Apocalypse as one of the levels you went through, and Sugar Man was one of the bosses. He was actually one of the hardest bosses in the entire game. Which, let me tell you, that game just cemented my love for AoA even more. Even more than the entirely too adult comic run that I was reading at entirely too young of an age. That game, which was a PS2 era game, so clearly AoA has a little bit of staying power to it. Man. Chat, I'm not gonna lie to you. I love this figure. I love it so much. It's so big. It's so gross. It perfectly captures Sugar Man. And it is just such a weird figure. He's going to look awesome next to Mojo and Modok. I love it. I love every bit about it. Heck, maybe they're going to use the big face technology that they developed with this figure. Maybe that means they're going to give us an updated Modok as a build figure. That'd be kind of cool. I like my Modok, but maybe they're going to give us a new one. This is a really fun figure. It is the second time we've ever seen Sugar Man in plastic form. The first time was back in the ToyBiz days. We're talking back in the 90s. He had a figure. It was not as articulated as this. It did have a battle axe that it came with as well, which I've got extra battle axes. If I want to give him a battle axe for this hand, I will. That's no problem. This is such a cool figure. And bonus for anyone that didn't notice this, because I did not when I first put it together, but I did as I was examining the articulation on him. The hammer actually fits into a holster here on his belt. There's a little holster right here with the intent of you nuzzling the hammer into it. Bam! Sugar Man can also holster away his hammer. That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool, I'm not gonna lie. That is pretty darn cool. They put a lot of thought into this figure, and I'm glad. I'm glad that Hasbro is not just giving us basic figures that should be in the wave as build-to-figures. Between this and the upcoming Strong Guy, I hope that they keep up this trend of doing bigger, weirder figures as their build-to-figure instead of another Okoye or another M'Baku, another Mantis. Figures that really, truly should have just been single-pack. I like this. I like this a lot. Well, now in earnest, that is everything, chat. We've gotten our build-to-figure. We've had our 7 Age of Apocalypse figures that we've reviewed today. That is everything. I thank you all so much for coming. I thank you all so much for hanging out while we did this unboxing that honestly, I know it's I know that this particular unboxing's a little bit selfish because I have such a distinct love for the Age of Apocalypse series. Everything about the comic book run I loved. So these figures make me all kinds of happy. It brings me back to that very first Marvel book I ever read. Ever. Which is nuts to think of how long ago that was. Chad, I was in a daycare reading Age of Apocalypse. Now, I'm married and a homeowner with figures from Age of Apocalypse. It's Funny how life works. This was a ton of fun. Again, my personal recommendations as far as single figures go, grab this beast. He's awesome. If you don't have the previous beast, definitely grab him. If you do have the previous beast, he's pretty good. Otherwise, if you already have the previous beast and you don't want another one, this Sunfire, chef's kiss. It's wonderful. If you don't want AoA Sunfire, grab X-Man, because Nate Gray, he's probably not going to be getting another version of himself anytime soon. Wild Child, of course, it's the only way you're going to get him, but he was exclusively an AoA character, so there's that. Thank you so much for coming. This has been a ton of fun. Is there going to be an unboxing next week? Maybe? I don't know. I'll be honest with you guys. I don't know. I've got one or two just loose figures not associated with any waves. That's it. There are no new waves coming out that we haven't already unboxed on the channel. Not until, I think it's like September, October. I know the retro wave of Spider-Man comes out in October. Not even all of them. Some of them come out in November. There's other waves that allegedly are going to be announced soon because we didn't have Comic-Con, so allegedly they're going to be announcing like Gamerverse Wave 2, some other figures, the Maximum Venom wave of figures, allegedly. Strong Guy wave just got fully announced. I think that comes out in August or September. We knew about Black Tom from that. We knew about Warpath. We knew about Sunspot. We knew about Blue Suit Deadpool. We did not know about Pirate Deadpool or about Shikla, Queen of the Vampires and Bride of Deadpool, with the baby land shark Jeff. But of course now we know who all the figures are to make up the Strong Guy Guido wave. So that'll be pretty fun. I really want to have a Guido figure because he hasn't had a figure since the 5-inch series back in the day. So it'll be cool to have a big version of him too. In the meantime, chat, everybody that has come in either in the stream or let's either here in the stream, or if you check this out later on, of course, on the YouTube, you can get all of the announcements and some cool pictures that we do up on the Twitter too. But there's the YouTube link. Thank you so much for joining us. It has been wonderful. You guys have been great. I will see you next time. Keep it nerdy.